Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Faith, the weekly devotional where Callum and I spend a little bit of time relaxing and talking through elements of our faith, the way that God has been working in our hearts recently, and we sit down with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. So we hope that you're free and have a little bit of time to relax with us and sit and enjoy a cup of tea or coffee as we talk through faith together, and hopefully this is something that can build you up in your own walk with the Lord as you continue to push forward in your own faith. So, Callum, what has been on your mind recently?
Well, what I've been thinking about just a little bit, I guess, over this last, not just few weeks, few months, last year, is the idea of unity, or maybe more accurately, disunity. You don't have to look very far in our world today to see a disunified people. A prime example is over in America at the moment, with all that's kind of led up to the instatement of Joe Biden as the next president, the back and forth, the conflict, the horrendous riots where people actually died at the Capitol buildings. But it's not just America that has problems with disunity. We have our own challenges over here. I mean, Brexit was a prime example of the difficulties of both sides, and not. It feels an awful lot like we've lost the ability to have a good discourse nowadays. It's very much enemy against enemy, shouter against shouter. There's no listening anymore, and a lot of our discussions feel very much like arguments, but very aggressive, kind of one-sided arguments where we don't want to hear what people have to say. And actually, I think there's a great importance in unity, in being unified together and working forward. Some of the greatest achievements of mankind are worked out of people's ability to come together, and tribalism will always be part of who we are, but I think there's a call to rise above that.
Yeah, I think unity is incredibly important. It's the only way that good things really get done, is when we come together and help when we need to help, or come together and just work as a team. It's something so important. It's something that we find important here at Kilman, just in general. Is there anything in your mind that's come up in your life that's maybe been brought out of maybe unity or lack of unity?
I mean, there's been plenty of moments. It's one of those ones of, because they're moments, they're often sensitive, and they're not maybe the things to bring out specifically in this sort of place, but I definitely, as I'm sure we all do, have experience of conflict and division and arguments with people on one side or the other. And there's an interesting thing that I think often happens in that situation, where pride gets in the way. You don't want to hear, you don't want to listen, because to admit that is to admit you might be wrong. And I've definitely felt myself in that kind of a position on more than one occasion, where I'm arguing something that I'm not even sure if I believe in anymore, but I've committed to this position, so that's where I'm going to stand. There's a stubbornness that can sometimes come to it. But even looking at the church as a whole, it's easy to kind of look out on society and blame them and say, look at the disunity over there, but the church is not very unified, realistically. It hasn't been for a long time. There's conflicts between denominations who dislike each other or find ways to discredit one another of why they're not really proper Christians. And that's not just in the modern society. You go back, the Reformation, which, like St. Martin Luther, was well intent on reforming the church, but what actually happened was division. It was a shattering, and there's this kind of almost trend, particularly within Protestant churches, of I disagree, so I will leave. It's not working together, it's not working it out, it's conflict and division and separation, which leads to a place that I don't necessarily think we're meant to be in. It can be slightly disheartening looking on and seeing people who we should be close to and we should be working with, but still there is that tension that is at play. And I don't think that's very healthy. I don't think that's necessarily for the best, at least in my mind.
It's all too easy to be able to look and to see some churches that may have split apart for maybe somewhat good reasons, but in the end of the day, unity is so crucial, and because of that, it's no longer one strong church, but then two divided churches potentially can come from that. And even when you think about it denomination-wise, the more people, the more healthy and strong you can express the gospel, but as soon as you split apart, that teamwork just means it's gone. It's really unfortunate. So when it comes to unity, is there anywhere in particular in Scripture that you turn to that maybe helps develop our understanding on unity?
Yeah, one of the places for me that I come to is from John chapter 17. There's plenty of verses, I think, that allude or point towards the ideas of unity, but these are Jesus' words, and they particularly stand out to me. And just prior, he has been praying particularly for his disciples, but then his prayer shifts on towards us, the believers to come, and he says these challenging words. My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved me and have loved them even as you have loved me. That idea that we see unity in the Trinity, in the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, and that we are called into that unity to be part of that, and that would be a marker for the world to see who God is. I honestly believe that unity is the forgotten virtue of the church. That somehow in our pride and our arrogance, over time and over years, we've forgotten what it is to be one people again. We've forgotten what it is to put aside our righteousness in certain causes for the sake of the gospel. Because we are called to be one with one another. And I think that's a huge, important challenge for us. And unity is not the same as uniformity. In my head, like the picture of one to the other, uniformity is more like sterile hospital tiles, like perfectly regimented, perfectly clean, but with no marks or anything on them. Whereas, to my mind, unity is more like a jigsaw puzzle. It's many pieces brought together. They're different shapes, they're different colours, but together they form a fuller picture. And I think that is what we're being called towards, being brought into as we look to Jesus, as we're brought more into the things of God, to be more shaped, to be like that, to be that example to the world that we can get past our differences. And it is, at times, I think you do see that in church. There's something fascinating and wonderful to people who you know would never normally spend life together in any other context, but yet here they are as brothers and sisters. You see it in small parts, but sometimes we are reluctant to bring it into our mentality as the whole. And I know in many ways this is theoretical. It's easy in theory to aspire to unity, but when it comes to the practicality of it, it's difficult. Because it does come to letting go of our pride. It also comes to sacrifice. When it comes to compromise, no one's really happy, because everyone kind of loses a little bit. And actually, to get unity working, often we have to compromise. We have to sacrifice. We have to let go of some of the things that we maybe thought were particularly important, and that is not easy. And particularly when you come to theology, there are some things that I do believe we shouldn't let go of, and it's right to hold on to dearly and to not move past. But there still needs to be discussion, to be a way that we can move forward as God's people, and looking especially to the example that we find in Jesus. To be like him, to be shaped by him, and to be his example. This perfect community that is the Trinity, to follow that example in who we are to one another on like a small scale in our local community, and who we are as one church to another in our wider community, and who we are as an example of the church and what it can be to the world. Maybe that's overly aspirational of me, but there's something beautiful in that picture of one church working together for the gospel and the good news that is Jesus Christ.
I think the unity that's displayed through that picture is something that is awe-inspiring. It draws us to want to have that come to be. And we hope and pray that's something that we have within Scotland and within the world in general, a unified church behind Jesus, behind God. So we hope that that's encouraging for you as you think about how you can be more unified with the church here or with your brothers and sisters across the world, because unity is just the way forward. And we hope that's been a blessing and a challenge to you today.